In this video, I'm going to be analyzing interstate highways. Note that I will not be using my webcam in this video since the webcam tends to corrupt everything. And I'm hoping that if I don't use the webcam, everything is going to be smooth. So I'm going to be analyzing some primary interstate highways I really think shouldn't even be primary interstate highways. They should be auxiliary interstate highways because they're so short. And the numbering on a lot of them can be very messed up, although not as bad as U.S. highways. So we're just going to take a look and analyze that right now. First of all, I-2 is only 46 miles. So it's not a lot. And it is kind of a spur off I-69. In I-69, it has, I think the only auxiliary in the state is I-369 in Texas. Yep, there's that, but it kind of lacks, you know, like, kind of lacks, like, it kind of lacks, like, a lot of the, auxiliary, so you can make I-2 a spur off I-69. It's only 46 miles, so it shouldn't be a primary interstate highway. It's tough between I-2 and I-4, which one is further south, so I'm fine keeping it that way. I-4 is 132 miles. I know that we have an auxiliary route that's also that long, but I-4, I'm fine keeping as a primary interstate highway. Obviously, I-5 is going to be a primary interstate highway, it's the main West Coast highway. I-8, you can't make an auxiliary highway when it's 350 miles. You just can't. I-10, obviously the primary South Coast highway. I-11, that's a weird one because I feel like once it gets expanded, it'll have more of a case. For now, a good chunk of it runs east of I-15, but again, as it continues to get expanded, if it, obviously it could get expanded to Phoenix and it'll continue to be in the wrong way, but it could also get expanded through northern Nevada as well, and hit Reno. I guess the idea is in Nevada for it to run up to U.S. Route 95. I-12 really should be an auxiliary highway. 86 miles is long for an auxiliary interstate, but it doesn't have any auxiliaries of its own. And while it's long for an auxiliary interstate, it's not like super long, and it does start and end in I-10, and it basically serves to bypass I-10 in New Orleans. So I-12, you again really should be an auxiliary interstate highway of I-10. And looking at I-10 in the state of Louisiana, it has I-110, it has I-210, I-310, I-510, I-610, and I-910. Don't know if I was on any of those, to be honest. But it could be like Interstate 810 because that's unoccupied. I-15 obviously is gonna stay as the Mountain West main highway. I-16 is too long for it to be an auxiliary at 166 miles, and numerically it fits. I-14, which I actually skipped though, you know, that only hits I-35 once, but it basically like is a spur of I-35. I know that they want to expand it. I don't know how long it's going to be with expansion. However, it is only 25 miles at this point, so at this point I'd say it should be a spur off of I-35. That's what I'd say at this point. And I-35 in Texas does have quite a bit of oh no, it only has I-635, so it could be like I-135, I-335. It could be like a spur off that. I get that they want to expand it, but like, I mean, come on. I-17 is too long to make an auxiliary, and numerically it fits I-19. It's only 102 kilometers, and I use that because it actually uses kilometers instead of miles, and it's basically a spur from I-10 down to Mexico. So honestly, there is a strong case for that to be an auxiliary interstate highway as well. Um, but you know, you know, I'm not gonna look through I-10 in Arizona to see all the auxiliaries they have because while there's a strong case for that, there's many highways that have stronger cases, and I want to focus on those. I-20 is a primary interstate highway. Reeves County in Texas is all the way in the western side of the state. So like it's not like it starts near the Dallas area. It's short, but there's two main highways that have in the 0 or 5 that I have major gripes with. I-22 is fine the way it is. I-24, it's a bit odd for a diagonal highway, but to be honest, you're only fixing that by either truncating the route or having it go straighter. I-25 is fine the way that it is. I-26, again, another diagonal highway, but whatever. I-27 is pretty short, but it is unfinished, though it'll only hit New Mexico upon finishing. It is 128 miles, though, so it is relatively long for a spur route. So I guess I'm fine keeping it the way it is. I-29 is fine the way it is. I-30 should not be I-30. A primary interstate highway that ends in like a 0 or 5 should not go for only 367 miles. It should really be either I-28 or I-32. I-30 should not exist. I-35 is fine the way it is. I-37, a little bit on the short side, but 143 miles is probably too long for an auxiliary. I-39 is 306 miles, so that's fine the way it is. I-40 is fine the way it is. I-41 and I-43 are fine the way they are. I-42 is still unfinished. So I'm gonna give I-42 the benefit of the doubt here. I know it's only 31 miles, but it's still unfinished. I-44 is pretty much fine the way it is. I know that it ends in St. Louis, but it's mostly in line since the next highway after 44 is 64. I-45 is only in Texas, and it's only 285 miles. It should not be a primary interstate highway. It should have to relegate to like I-47 or something like that. I mean, even I-49 is longer, and it's only 549 miles. I-55 is a little bit on the shorter side, but that's fine, I guess. I-57, it kind of does mainly used to serve as a bypass, but now it's extended so that it goes 508 miles. Of course, it does go into Arkansas now, so it's no longer just a bypass of I-57. I-55, but even when it was still 380 miles, so it was still way too long to have it be an auxiliary interstate highway, even though it kind of would service one. 59 is mostly fine the way it is, though I do have a problem with it being that number past Birmingham. 64 is fine the way it is. And you really can't make it I-60 if you were wondering, because US 60 is in the state. I-65 is pretty much fine the way it is. Ideally, I would want it to be longer, but it does end at the Great Lakes. It'd have to go up Michigan for it to continue. I-66 kind of just serves as a spur of I-81 into DC. I-81 does not really have a lot of auxiliary interstate highways. It only has, 4 total, so it could still be I-181 without having any problems. And again, I-66 is only 76 miles, and again, it kind of does serve as a spur from I-81 that goes into DC. I-68 is 113 miles, but at least that's better. I-69, yeah. I-70, again, is a primary highway, and at over 2,000 miles, I'm fine with it being that way. I-71 is also mostly fine the way it is. 72 is fine the way it is. 73 still needs to be expanded. As you can see here, plan to go in 5 more states. 74 is just just it's very ugly in the North Carolina part of the route. 75 is fine the way it is. 76, This 76 is better in my opinion, as it goes 435 miles as opposed to 187. I-77, again, mostly fine, although it does cross I-81, but that's more of an I-81 problem, which actually does run 855 miles, but it's not a primary, which is weird, but no one really put it. 78 is mostly fine the way it is. Again, you're not making an auxiliary highway that's 146 miles. My major issue is none of these highways should actually be auxiliaries of I-95, of I-78. This is really a spur of I-95. This is really a bypass of I-95. And I-478 is just a tunnel, and I-878 should be just, removed and just fully truncated to NY-878. I-79, again, fine the way it is. I-80, obviously fine the way it is. As you know, the intermediate northernmost route at over 2,900 miles. I-82 is fine the way it is, although I will say this really should be more of a north-south route, as it does go more north-south, as it goes from Ellensburg to Hermiston. So that could probably serve as like I-9 or I-7. I know that they already have one planned. But yeah, that's what they could do. I-83 is kind of a spur into Baltimore at 85 miles, but it already has its own auxiliary of I-283, so I'm fine leaving it put. I-84, the one from Oregon to Utah goes almost 800 miles, and the one in the Northeast, despite going through more states, goes to only 230 miles. But both are fine the way that they are. I-85 is 666 miles. Not really okay with it being a primary. It probably should be I-81, but it's not. This I-86, it's 63 miles just through Idaho. I really don't see why it can't be an auxiliary. The one in New York, at least, is unfinished. It'll go through more distance along NY-17, and it's currently 254 miles on its own volition. I-87 in North Carolina is unfinished. It's only 13 miles, but I'm not going to criticize it too much because I-87 is going to be expanded, hopefully, into Virginia. Already has an auxiliary, although I will say the I-87 in North Carolina used to be I-495. There's another one in New York, but that runs for 333.5 miles, so I'm not going to criticize it too much. Both of the I-88s are short, but they're both fine, probably. I-89 is fine, although the part in New Hampshire crosses I-91. I-90, obviously, 3,100 miles, longest interstate highway, that's got to stay. 91 is fine. 93 is still fine. 95 is fine. They're all very good. I-94 is weird because, honestly, because it does hit 90 both at its end in Lockwood, Montana, and again in Lake Stanton, Indiana. After crossing I-90 in Chicago, Illinois, you could make a case for it to be a bypass of I-94. But number one, it goes past that, and number two, you are not making it I mean, I-94 is the longest non-primary interstate at 1555 miles. Arguably should be a primary interstate. You are not making an 1100-mile route in auxiliary. Like, you're just not. And look at how many auxiliaries it has. It has 194, 394, 494, 694, 794, 894, 294, and another 194 in Michigan. Rounding out the list, though, 96 is fine. It's 192 miles. 99 should not be where it is. I know that there's nowhere else to really put it, but come on. Come on. Like, think of something. And 97, finally. I know you really don't have any more room to make another auxiliary of I-95 in Maryland, but you've got to do it. Also, I-95A, interesting.